Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events.
The Big Football Show, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on Roku at 4 p.m. Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Big Football Show every Sunday, 8 a.m. on YouTube. We'll be rebroadcasting on our Roku channel at 4 p.m. In case you missed it, you want to see us on the big screen. Joining us here today, and we got everybody that's normally here. Jack Hirsch, my partner in crime, James, who I'll probably be seeing tonight on the NFL Download. Of course, we got Sonia, who's our lady in sports. Very knowledgeable, of course, about football. And we have our college expert, the Reverend Keith Angle. But, Keith knows a lot about a lot of sports. I don't want to just limit Keith to college sports because Keith is very well versed in all the sports. So how you doing today? How you doing out there, folks? Hope you enjoyed the games yesterday. And we're going to get to that, of course, in a minute. Keith, of course, we have you on here for the college football things. I want to go over that happened this last week, coming in with Notre Dame, one of your favorites to win it all, and Ohio's very close game. Ended up playing Penn State. I mean, 27-24, Keith. It could have went either way, but. Jeremiah Love, was there any a better 4-yard run for a touchdown that you've seen than that run he made?
No, that was the most. It was an incredible run. I mean, I'm sure there's been similar, but my thought at the very moment was, "Oh my gosh, what a great play!" I mean, he banged up to begin with, and there was no quit, and I think it epitomizes this Notre Dame team a little bit. They play tough. The quarterback, Riley Leonard, plays tough. He's not pretty out there a lot of times, but this team goes out there and gets the job done. And that run was, I think, I guess the whatever you want to use, the poster for that game was that run was the benchmark of that game.
I mean, I watched it. I went back and even watched it on YouTube again. I saw it live. And I mean, just the way he got hit, spin, took on a couple more blocks, and dove into the end zone with people holding on to him was unbelievable. Is he a junior, Keith? Do we have him back again next year?
I believe he's a junior unless he declares, which he has not declared for the draft as of yet. I think he's got till this. Oh, I don't know what the date is. If you're in the playoff, it could be a while yet because they've got another 10 days before they play almost. This team, though, if they were getting outplayed and outmuscled, then they were getting beat up in the trenches the whole first half. But they made some great adjustments to their line and their play calling. They went more, I think, north and south than east and west, and I think they just outmuscled Penn State in the second half, where Penn State really controlled that part of the game in the first half, but didn't capitalize with points. And you can't let good teams hang around, right? So.
Right. Riley Leonard, of course, we've talked about him a lot. He's more of a runner or a threat to pick up that first. He runs a lot on third and short, even fourth and short. I mean, that's his thing. He runs behind the running back and Notre Dame's offensive line. And, nobody said anything about Steve Angeli. I hope I'm saying it right. The backup quarterback who put together a 44-yard drive to get a score, Keith. I mean, he played really well for that one drive they put him in.
He did, and that was an important drive to get that field goal at the end of the half to keep them, get them a little momentum, getting the ball back, and they had a nice lift. They said they make some nice adjustments. I think it's a lift for the team to see Riley Leonard, who, they very well could have gone into the locker room thinking he wasn't coming back. But the kid did a great job, and under tough circumstances, right? He hasn't played a lot this year at all, so great job by him for sure.
So they're going to be matched up against Ohio State. Really, it was a good game for the first half, right? 14 unanswered points, including a strip sack. We know that, and a scoop up for a touchdown. Will Howard played pretty well. He threw 2 interceptions. He's a young kid. Quinn Ewers did have a decent game, Keith. He really did. I mean, he threw for a couple touchdowns, had that interception. But Ohio State's defense is really good, Keith. It's going to be tough for Notre Dame to beat them this week.
It will be tough, but this game's a lot closer than 28-14. This game was tied with, 10 minutes left or whatever. Ohio State pulled away late with a touchdown and then that interception for a touchdown. Quinn Ewers played very well. Howard played fairly well. Neither team could run the football, and I think I know we talk about Notre Dame needing to run the ball against Ohio State. Well, Ohio State's going to need to run the ball against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's defense is very stout. They give up some runs to Robinson on Thursday night, but I think Notre Dame's defense could be up to the task here. They need to play mistake-free football. Ohio State out-talents them for sure, but again, I didn't see a team that I thought, oh my God, this team can't be beaten against Texas. Texas, with breaks go the other way, they might win this game. So there were 2 for the semifinals, as far as we've seen. Right when we had 4 teams, these were 2 of the better games I think that we've seen through the 4-team and now 12-team college football playoff.
I think it's going to be important that Notre Dame definitely got to stop the run. Got a young quarterback on the other side. You got a young quarterback that you may be able to confuse, that you might be able to pick off. I mean, he did throw 2 interceptions against Texas. So that might be a key. I mean, if they stop the run and they can get to Will Howard, confuse him a little bit, put a little pressure on him, Notre Dame has a chance. If not,
Howard's not a kid. He played 3 years at Kansas State before he came to Ohio State. So he should be experienced enough.
Well, I'm saying kid as far as, 20 years.
No, I get it. No, I get it. And he is prone to mistakes at times. And you saw that, Alar for Penn State, you saw Notre Dame in the second half had him more confused. And still they didn't put the ball in the end zone except for one time in the first half, even when they were dominating the line of scrimmage. And Alar made a big mistake at the end of that game. And that's what you can't do. And Will Howard's prone to the same kind of thing. And I think that's what this game will come down to. I think it'll be fairly closely fought, and whoever doesn't turn the ball over late will be fine. We'll probably win.
Carson Beck goes to the transporter. He doesn't go to the NFL. From what I read, Keith, he committed to Miami.
$4 million NIL money he committed to the Hurricanes. He also, by the way, he's made between $10 and $12 million in NIL money in the last 12 months between this deal and what he'd gotten from Georgia. So he didn't have a window left to go to Georgia because he'd entered the draft, which he's still in the draft. He's got to pull out by whatever date. I don't remember the date. He could still go to the draft. He'd be silly to do it, obviously. But Georgia already reallocated all his money, so he had no choice but to go elsewhere. And I think it's probably best for him and the team to move on from that anyway, because this was not, they did make the playoffs and win the SEC, but it was not your typical Georgia year. And I think they need to kind of retool a little bit. And I think starting over at quarterback is a good place to do it.
I mean, Miami is your wife's favorite team, and you adopted them
I
as
did.
your team in college. What do you think about Carson Beck being your starting quarterback?
I'm not sure. I think it's a bit of a gamble. He can't even throw until March because of his surgery. So you don't know what you're going to get. They had great success, obviously, with the similar move for a little less money with Cam Ward last year. But this has backfired on them in the past. They brought a kid in from Houston a couple years ago whose name escapes me, and he was going to be the next best thing. They brought Van Dyke in there. He didn't do very well. So they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle for the second time. And they've made some big changes there in Miami on the defensive side of the football and the coaching staff. So we'll see. They know where their weaknesses are, and they know they need a quarterback. He's also not going to have the same weapons Cam Ward had either, by the way. So
Keith,
No doubt.
I know they got Carson Beck, but what is Miami doing to right the ship on that defense?
Well, they fired defensive coordinator. He got fired after one season, so that's the start there. They'll probably be in the whole new defensive coaching staff, or mostly a new staff, and that's another place they need to hit the portal and do a better job recruiting, and maybe scheme-wise too. Sometimes it's just scheme. You've got players, and you just have to have the right scheme, but you can't go in there needing to score 45 points every week to win games and expect not to have some things happen like happened to them this year against Georgia Tech and Syracuse late, and it cost them a playoff berth.
Yeah, and I don't know if Carson Beck is as good as the quarterback that's going to the NFL right now to bring him back.
Yeah, I don't think he is. And again, I don't think Cam Ward's a great college quarterback. Remember, we have this discussion all the time. Great college quarterback, quarterback at Miami. I don't know that he'll be that good at Miami even. And going to the next level, my doubts about Cam Ward a little bit. Carson Beck wasn't even going to go the first 2 days probably of this draft. So smart move by him. But again,
Good morning, Matt.
would be enough. To James' point, they need to focus on that defense as much as they do as replacing their quarterback. So,
Good morning, Matt. Glad to have you aboard. Let's get to Keith's picks yesterday for yesterday's games. And like almost everybody else except for Jack and I think Pags, we all took the Chargers. We drank the Kool-Aid. We said, okay, here's Jim Harbaugh. He's going to win a playoff game, blah, blah. And Houston just was fired up. Their defense played unbelievably. And, the Chargers.
Their defense played well. Their defense played well, but the Chargers' offensive line was putrid. Herbert was putrid. And again, you got to contribute something to the defense, obviously. I'm going to change one of my picks today, by the way, because I don't know everything else that's going on out where these guys live is not affecting their focus for these games. So I may change pick today because that game maybe those guys look like their minds were elsewhere. A lot of those guys. So
what do you want? You want to go with the Rams?
I'll be jumping off the Rams and onto Minnesota. Yes, just so you know.
All right. You also let's talk a little Patriots because of course there's not really a lot to talk about. We already talked about them firing Mayo. From what I read, they're really in some big discussions with, of course, Vrabel, who that they want to be their head coach. There's no doubt about that. Where does the Patriots go with their picks? I mean, they got a lot of holes. I mean, offensive line, wide receiver, defense. They need to do a little bit more work. Or do you think Vrabel coming in is your best draft pick if he comes in?
That's a great point. He would be the best draft pick. What they need is a culture change altogether, and Mike Vrabel will bring that. and probably any head coach would bring that, but an experienced head coach would bring. What was that for? Oh, I took Minnesota. That's right. I've been picking against Minnesota for weeks. Rick's been very happy.
He whammied you. You're all set.
Sorry, Rick. It's over for your season today. They do need a culture change. But Vrabel would bring that. Ben Johnson, it comes down to whether you want the culture and the history that the Patriots have with Mike Vrabel, or you want to maybe treat somebody with some more innovative ideas like a Ben Johnson. I thought all along that Vrabel's the guy, and Vrabel may get named early next week in my mind. You saw the way they rushed through their interviews with the Rooney Rule guys, and they did bring Ben Johnson in, I think Friday, for they could have a video, a virtual interview, and it went well, I guess. But I think their eyes are set on Vrabel. That's the only reason they made this move quickly. In my mind, and I could be wrong, but this is what I see happening early the next week or soon after.
Wait a minute. They interviewed Ben Johnson?
Virtually on Friday, I believe. Yeah.
Wow. That's I
what
don't know. That's the kink in the armor there. I mean,
he could come in and overwhelm them. I mean, it's possible. And I do think there's a case to be made for hiring a Ben Johnson when you got a young quarterback like Drake May. He's
absolutely
with that Detroit offense, obviously, and he's going to be two things. They love Vrabel, and Kraft's a little tight with his money. Ben Johnson's going to get a lot of money. Vrabel will too, but I think Ben Johnson will get more, and there's going to be more competition. Every team's going to want Ben Johnson. Every single team.
Yeah, but if the Patriots are, I mean, you got a new quarterback, like you said, and top 3 picking a quarterback, and look what he's done with Jared Goff. I mean, man, I don't know, man. I didn't know that. I didn't know this interview. What you're telling me right now is news to me, and to me, I'm be interested to see how this plays out towards the end.
They wanted to interview. You only have a short window to interview these assistants that are in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think they want to wait. Ben Johnson could be tied up for another almost month before he can take a job or really even interview in person. And there's going to be a lot of teams chasing him then, so it's going to go past a month. I don't know that they want to wait that long either, and I still think it's Vrabel because they love him.
Vrabel's an experienced head coach. He did take the Tennessee Titans to the playoffs. Ben Johnson is unproven, right? He's an offensive coordinator. We don't know what kind of head coach he'll be. So I think the Patriots will go with the experienced head coach.
I would prefer to go that way myself. You went the inexperienced way, and it didn't work out. Again, with time, maybe it would have, but they don't want to spend that time. Kraft's 83 years old. He doesn't want to wait 5 years.
Yes, he's not like Jimmy Johnson, who doesn't care. Patriots, bring back Parcells. That's not happening, Bill. I mean, no. I don't know. I don't know if Bill would be interested in coaching at all. I don't think so. So anyway,
I personally call him fat bastard, but he will not be back. He will never. There's no way he'll ever see him work. First of all, he's too old, and second of all, there's no way he would ever work for Robert Kraft or vice versa again. They do not have a
Robert Kraft would not work for Bill Parcells. Listen, Bill did bring you to the Super Bowl, you ungrateful person. He did bring the Patriots to the Super Bowl, and they did have a heck of a year that one.
They had a great year, except he was negotiating with the Jets all during the time he should have been preparing them for the Super Bowl. Forget about that.
The relationship was sour before then. Negotiating with the Jets, the relationship had to be sour.
You want me to list all the things he did that week? He negotiated while he should have been preparing the team. He left his best special teams player off the roster for the Super Bowl. He kept kicking the ball to Desmond Howard when he kept returning things for touchdowns. And he didn't come back with the team after the game. So,
somebody's still sour about that game.
It's funny because I was getting on in my chat group for TJ. They were ripping Harbaugh yesterday because they were saying it's not so easy when you can't cheat, right? And I was saying, get over it. And Rick Sherlock spoke up and said, you're the same guy who's still pissed at that fat bastard. And I said, oh, touche, that's a good call. 30 years later, right?
Yeah. Yes. So Keith, we got your your last night's picks, and now you're taking Minnesota -1 versus the Rams. I think they're playing in Arizona, right? That's where they're playing at right now. That's where they moved the game to.
Yep. So that's one of the reasons I moved.
So you're taking.
I changed that pick because of the change in venue, even though the Rams don't have a huge home field advantage, even when they're playing at SoFi. But after watching the Chargers yesterday, I just think there's more going on in these guys' heads than football. I really do, and that's why I changed my pick.
I mean, when the floods happened in New Orleans, played for the fans and played for the people of New Orleans.
I get it.
You don't think
that was a whole season they had to kind of get through that.
Hold on, Mac. That playing during 2005 was terrible for New Orleans. It was terrible. They had to play in San Antonio. It was bad. Now, afterwards, after the storm had been done, they got a whole new coach, got a better quarterback. Then yes, things were better. But yeah, during during the storm, it was rough. So I agree with Keith. Their minds are probably on this. What's going on?
I don't know for a fact, but yesterday was just as bad as that team played. I gotta believe it factored in. So I'll take my pick. It was a kind of a toss up pick for me to begin with. So I'll switch to the Minnesota here.
Okay, you got Philly -5 versus Green Bay. It's in Philadelphia. Jordan Love hurt his arm a little bit.
He's cleared
back.
Yes,
he's cleared. Who do you got in that game, Keith?
I have Philadelphia -5 there. This pick hinged on Hurts playing for me. If Hurts had been out, I probably would have gone the other way and looked for the upset. But I think Eagles are just better all the way around than Green Bay. Green Bay is a live dog here, I think, but I like Philadelphia at home.
Last one I got you with is Washington +3.5 at Tampa. Interesting because you got a young team going against a team now that's very confident, especially with their quarterback and Mike Evans doing his thing. Good defense, but you got Jaden Daniels running around there trying to avoid getting sacked. I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty good game.
I think it'll be a close game. I think Tampa Bay will likely win. There could be some points scored. The Washington offense kind of slowed down a little bit the last month of the season, but I just have a feeling this team's going to win. Of course, they could get up 28-3 in the third quarter and blow the lead, I suppose, because Dan Quinn has experience in that regard. So I'm sorry. I always have to refer back to that game. But I do like Washington here.
Okay.
And
all
Buffalo.
Right.
You did mention my last pick. I did pick Buffalo as well.
Did you take Buffalo with a 9.5? Okay.
Yeah.
Buffalo with 9.5. All right. A couple more picks I want to get for you. We'll do our picks, folks. After Keith leaves, we'll get together and do our picks. It's end of the season, Keith. Who do you got for Coach of the Year?
That's a good one. So listen, guys who are expected to do things often don't get it. I'm going to give it to Dan Campbell at Detroit.
All right. Who do you got for MVP, Keith?
Josh Allen. Although Lamar Jackson's going to get a lot of votes. I mean, I think he played great yesterday, despite his playoff. This is a regular season award. He's had a season very few quarterbacks have had. I get that. But I think Josh Allen will win this award.
I think it's going to be really close. And last one for you. Well, let's do Offensive Player of the Year.
I'll give that one to Lamar Jackson. How about that?
All right. Defensive?
I wish I could give it to a team. I'll give it to J.J. Watt just because of or T.J. Watt. Which Watt is that? I mix those guys up. T.J. Watt.
Yes.
T.J. Watt.
Yes. And finally, Rookie of the Year. Who do you got for Rookie of the Year?
How about Jaden Daniels?
Well, you got two. You got offensive and defensive.
Yes.
Give it to Daniels, and I'll give it to Versus from the Rams.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right, Keith. Keith Engle's with us every Friday on the Mac and Jack Sports Show, going over college and the Patriots updates, sometimes Knicks and Yankees, depending on what news we got going. And he's also here every Sunday before his show that he's going over to right now. Keith, as always, thank you for coming in, and we always have fun having you in.
You guys have a great day. Enjoy the games.
Sure.
We definitely will. Thanks, Keith.
Have a great week.
So there you go, Keith Angle, with a little bit of college talk and a little bit of picks, which we'll be doing at the end of the show. We'll be doing a Coach of the Year and all that stuff at the end of the show, too. Jack is totally unprepared, so I know he's upset with me already before we start. But anyway, so anyway, he's not even saying anything. Okay, so let's get to our picks. We'll go with the other person who won the regular season. You took the Chargers yesterday. That's correct, right, James?
I did, yes.
Okay, so we start off with Philadelphia versus Green Bay, and who you got and why?
Well, I got Philadelphia. I just think there's some questions about Jordan Love and his injury. I mean, he's been clear. Of course, he's going to be clear to play, but whether or not he's still healthy enough to be effective enough to go against a defense like this. I like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter in the middle. That they stop the run, and they got to force Jordan Love to pass, and they can get in there and sack him as well. And plus, I like Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon Barkley is he's going to have the opportunities. You got the two wide receivers on the outside, A.J. Johnson and Devonta Smith. I think Saquon is just going to run all over this team. And then they're at home. I just think that the factor of the Eagles, being at home, it's going to be too tough for Green Bay. And Green Bay, like Keith said, and I know Jack picked them, is to go to the Super Bowl. They have an opportunity, but it's slim. It's like a puncher's chance for them in this game. I just think Philadelphia's going to be too much.
You got Denver going into Buffalo. Buffalo's favored by 9.5 points, James.
Yeah. Who did I pick?
I'm asking you.
Oh, I underlined Buffalo. Yeah, so I'm taking Buffalo. Yeah. I just think Buffalo. They've just been running over teams this whole season, and I think they have an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. They're talented enough. Look like Von Miller's hitting his escalators, so it looks like he's trying to come on defensively. And I just think that they're a better team than Denver right now, because Denver is still, to me, they're like the Chargers. Sean Payton was able to maximize what he could out of with the limited talent that he has. I think the limited amount of talent on this team is going to come back to bite him right here against a more formidable team in Buffalo.
All right, you got Tampa Bay, Washington going to Tampa Bay. Washington, as I said to Keith, the younger team. Tampa Bay a little bit more experienced with some really good players on it. What do you think? Do you think Washington holds up being a young team against Tampa Bay in the playoffs?
I think the inexperience has to be a downfall for Washington, although the coaching has been to the Super Bowl before with Dan Quinn. I just think that there's not enough. You got McLaurin, you got Jaden Daniels, you got Robinson on offense, and then but it's just not enough to go up against Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield has been playing lights out. I think he can control him and the running game. He's got a three-headed monster behind him, so it really helps to have guys that can come in and relieve another guy, and they're just dominant on offense with that running game. So I like Tampa Bay.
Do you agree with Keith on the Minnesota Ram pick? They're playing in Arizona. Minnesota's is giving 1 point to LA, so it's basically a pick 'em. Rams. Yeah. Listen, the Rams. What happened with the Washington quarterback Sam Darnold last week was scary to me. I mean, can he turn around? Can he turn around and play better?
I think, but you got to have a defense to get in his face to do that. I just don't think the Rams have the same caliber defense. And then what's scary is that I don't know, Detroit's defense. I really counted on their defense to not be that good, and they got in his face. They figured out a way to make him jittery in behind the line, and you saw what he did when he got pressure in his face. But I just think that, again, this is a bounce back game for him. He's been playing good all season. They're not going to lose to the Rams, even if it is away.
Okay, all right. Sonia didn't even irritate you about one pick today. That's surprising. I mean, I don't know if she's had her coffee or not, but she's normally all over you about your picks. But
she gave me thumbs down for winning the regular season. So that's okay.
All right. Let's push on to my. Go ahead, Sonia. You've been real quiet.
I didn't say anything. Like Jay, like looking at my notes, like he literally uses some of the same phrases I use, and it's ridiculous. And so I'm taking it in. Like you'll see when you get to the picks, it'll just be like a head nod because of what Train's already said. So, but I have my comments.
All right, Jack. We'll go to you next. You and I think Pags won Houston, so right now you're 2-0. Buffalo minus 9.5. Denver going to Buffalo. This Denver's defense have enough to at least keep it within that 9.5 points.
Yeah, I mean, they keep it close for a while, but at a certain point, the Bills going to break the game open. I could see the game even conceivably being close till the middle of the third quarter, and then Buffalo pulls away. That they'll win by a couple of touchdowns. This isn't going to be like a one-score game, and it's just a question if Denver could be hanging around at the end of the game, then maybe they'll have a chance. But I seriously doubt it. Sometimes you got to look at teams and see which team really needs the game a lot more. And, we saw it yesterday. Houston needed the game more than the Chargers in the sense that the Chargers have had a successful season no matter what. Had Houston lost, it wouldn't have been a successful season. The Ravens needed yesterday's game more than the Steelers in the sense because the Ravens were expected to win. And it would have been a disaster for the Ravens to lose to a Steelers team that went staggering into the playoffs. And that's what we got with Buffalo and Denver. If Buffalo loses, it's an absolute disaster after the type of season they had. But Denver had a good year no matter what. They could get shut out 40-0, and they've had a good year. They made it to the playoffs, and most people didn't think they'd be there. So, Buffalo should win by, 15 points or so, maybe even more, maybe 20, 23 points. They'll pull away at some point.
Green Bay was one of your picks to go to Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, Jack, right?
Yeah.
Green Bay and Houston, you were thinking?
So they're getting the Eagles today. I'm going to pick them to win outright. The points are what, 4.5 points?
5 points.
5 points. How come no one's talking about Josh Jacobs? All we hear about is Saquon Barkley, what he might do to the Packer defense. What about what Josh Jacobs might do to the Eagles defense? They've adapted a running type mentality to Packers. They've mixed it up well. Jordan Love is healthy. He's probably healthier than Jalen Hurts. Okay, at this point. He's not even on the questionable list, Jordan Love. I mean, he's ready to go. And their young receivers have kind of peaked, and and their offensive line has gotten better. And the Packers have been gearing for the playoffs. Don't be fooled by their seeding, them being, the 7th seed over there, because they kind of let up a little at the end of the season, even against the Bears. They weren't concerned with getting the 6th seed and playing at Tampa Bay as opposed to playing at Philadelphia. They were just concerned in getting their own team ready, not who they were going to play. And I look for them to go into Philadelphia and win, and it's going to be ugly in Philadelphia after today. I mean, very close game. I could see the Packers winning like a 24-23 type game. And what A.J. Brown said a few weeks ago actually holds true. He was accused of being selfish. He felt the lack of their passing game, the Eagles, could come back to hurt them later on. They better get it together for the playoffs, their passing game. And after he made the remark, they threw it a little more to A.J. Brown, but they've been relying too much on Saquon Barkley this year. I mean, a little too much. And if the Packers basically can keep him in check somewhat. The Eagles might be in trouble, and I know you're going to point to their roster, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard. They have the weapons besides that. If those weapons aren't kept sharp, okay, and they're not fine-tuned, you could run into a little difficulties. I like the Packers on an upset, 24-23. How's that?
They're going home, Jack. They're going home. Come on, man.
The Packers are underrated. I'm telling you, they're underrated. Eagles
on video games, they're underrated. Come on, there's this team. I don't think that Jordan Love's injury. They might have. He said he's not questionable, but that's still affected. There was an issue. They took him out of the game, obviously for precaution, but he was hurt. So I'm not saying that. And everybody has injuries at the end of the season.
He's not questionable. They have to list him as questionable in the injury report if he's hurt. They're not going to say he's not even questionable. That's how healthy he is.
I mean, again, and bringing up Josh Jacobs as well. Look, Josh Jacobs is great. He's a great running back. I love the pickup for him in Green Bay. He had a great season. But again, he's beating up two big monsters in the middle. They better try to get through there, but I don't know how they're going to do it. We'll see.
Sonia, what were you to say?
No, I was just saying, even though my pick is adverse to Jack's, I actually agree with Jack's commentary on everything about this game. Because even if you have the weapon, they're not sharpened, they're no good. It's like a dull knife. Like Jack is right. And we've gotten a lot of people that they literally are banking on Saquon. It's, his record. He's this. He's that. Whenever you start to rely on player solely to the point that every single conversation is surrounding that player, careful. Because for two reasons. Number one, the other team is aware of this. Sometimes you have players that play just beneath the radar to be dirty players, and they target them more. They're limiting that player in a way that they can't even produce in that game. So relying so much on Saquon, and they have Smith and have Brown and all this. Not only that, Jalen Hurts has not played week 16 because he was concussed. Those 2 weeks now going into 3 weeks will at the end of the day still affect everything. My slogan has always been Love Hurts. We got Jordan Love versus Jalen Hurts. That's the key today. Love Hurts. And so even though I'm picking the Eagles this is going to be a slugfest. Don't even worry about the weather being a factor because Green Bay's used to this. Don't even worry about it being in Philadelphia. They have not substantially gotten this run game going all season like people thought. They've just been relying on Saquon Barkley.
All right. Jack, Washington at Tampa Bay, the young team versus the veteran team in Tampa Bay. Who you got with them?
Yeah, Washington, something about them, they seem to be on a bit of a magical ride, which can only take them so far. I mean, they're not going to go to the Super Bowl, but this is a winnable game for Washington. I know people are pointing to Tampa Bay's personnel, saying, well, they're a little stronger, they're a little better, this and that. I mean, I watched their whole game virtually last week against the Saints, a must-win for Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay knew what was going on with the Atlanta and Carolina game, and they knew there was a chance of Atlanta winning the game, a good chance. Atlanta ultimately lost to the Panthers. Congratulations, Sonia, on that. But it looked like Atlanta had a solid chance of winning the game, meaning if the Buccaneers lost to the Saints, they're out of the playoffs and the Falcons are in. And this was a very weak, Saint team, a pathetic Saint team in a way. Yet the Saints looked like the Saints were leading for much of the game. They looked like they were, could win the game at points till finally the Buccaneers took control late in the game. Now, how good are the Buccaneers? That game last week was just as important as the game this week coming up, today's game. So I don't want to hear them more motivated because it's the playoffs. That would have been a colossal embarrassment to be bumped out of the playoffs against the Saints, and they just got by. And this is a much better team, the Commanders, than the Saints. I know outside of McLaren, you could say, well, the Commanders don't have any other weapons. They don't have this and that. Jaden Daniels is a rookie. I don't think these players, especially a young guy like Jaden Daniels, distinguishes that much between the regular season and the playoffs. He's not going to choke and get nervous. If anything, they'll get more excited, more enthusiastic. And, it's going to be a close game. It's a toss-up game, a hard game to pick. I'm going to go with the Commanders. How does this sound? Something like 23-17 in overtime. That type of game.
And Jack, I got to go back. I got to shoot back at you. Who's more pathetic, the Saints or the Jets with all more talented team?
The Jets had a more pathetic year because of all their talent. Absolutely. It's not explainable. The Jets season, I can't explain because every position they were ready. They were set to roll. So
that makes them more pathetic, right? Exactly.
Oh, no, absolutely. They had a more pathetic year, the Jets, because of their personnel. But the Saints are a weaker team. The Saints have a lot more holes. That's what I mean. It had to get filled. And I hear Taysom Hill might be gone too.
Yeah, probably. I mean, a lot of these guys are old. I don't want to jump on where we at because I know Max got to keep going. But yeah, a lot of those guys are older, and it's just their contracts are like albatrosses. So it's just time for them to clean house and revamp.
Jack's got one more pick. Minnesota -1 versus the Rams in Arizona. To me, this is the spread says it too. This is a pretty even game. I think this might be the best game of the whole playoffs. I mean, you got great wide receiver groups. Both running backs are good. Both quarterbacks are good. I think this is going to be a pretty good game, Jack.
Yeah, a lot of times we don't look at the human element. You just look at the rosters. You look at the Viking defense, one of the best in the NFL on the Brian Flores. Then you look at the offensive side of the ball, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, Hockenstein, et cetera, and you figure the Vikings should win the game. They're an elite team based on that. But when you have a big game the week before and you're putting every emotion into it, and it's a Sunday night game, don't ever underestimate Sunday night games because everybody's watching on Sunday night. That game more than any other. And you're playing the Lions. That's like a mini Super Bowl last week here. And you come up flat and you get a butt whipping the way the Vikings did. Now you got to come back the next week. You don't think players are thinking, Mackie, I know you like to go how they should think, but I like to go how they realistically thinking.
I know because you've been a player. You've been a player in the NFL, so you know. So go ahead, Jack.
It feels like you've been a player in the NFL.
You said I think I know. You said you do know. So I'm saying since you played,
the emotions are flat. I know the feeling. I used to run marathons.
Well, that's the same.
Badly wanted to get a personal best in a marathon. Everything fell apart at the halfway point. It was a disaster for me. I could hardly run for the next 6 months. I was so down. Had I set a personal best, I would have been out there training hard for the next one, but I was flat after that. That's part of any athletics, any level that you're on. And the Vikings now, they got to go to LA, and then they won't be in LA. It's going to be in Arizona. But they got to play the extra game against the Ram team that's really primed for them. It's going to be a close, tough game. It's a toss-up game. But I have to believe when all is said and done, Vikings have a little more talent, a little more firepower. I could see them winning something like a 21-14 type game.
Okay, all right. So we get to Sonia, who's bundling up. Sonia, are you cold over there? You got heat? Yeah. What's going on?
So we got snow down here. We got snow. Friday is still
Atlanta. Oh, in Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta. This morning it was like 7. And
Sonia.
And not only.
I'm sorry.
I'm having to use my phone because for some reason my MacBook decided to do another update, so it's still updating. And this room that I'm in, I think I've had the vent closed in here because I'm never in here. It's the front of the house. And so I have my heated blanket on.
I see it. It's like Holy
Sonia,
cow.
James is very proud of special services in Atlanta, the way they handled the snow, the way
Yeah,
they were all ready and on top of it. James
I,
is very
I
proud of his city.
by the it's not a blanket. It's like a little throw. It's a winter throw. So it's kind of like it's supposed to look like a. You know how when you're in high school, you do your cap and gown picture, and like at least they do, and they have like the little fur looking thing, or whatever, a little wool thing. That's what this is. It's really
All
not.
right,
But
all right. All you need is the crown, and you'd be all set. So Sonia, you're 1-1 too. You took the Chargers in Baltimore. Like I said, everybody drank the Kool-Aid on the Chargers. So you got Tampa Bay at Washington again. The experienced team versus the young team in Tampa Bay. I think that still matters, especially in the playoffs, as you saw what happened with Houston and Baltimore. I think that matters in the NFL. That's your home and your fans are behind you, and you don't have to ride a plane. You don't have to get in a hotel, and you know to make all these arrangements. I mean, you're home. I think that's a big thing. What do you think? Do you think Washington, being that young, exciting team, can upset Tampa Bay?
I mean, even in my picks, I didn't pick Washington. I don't think this is going to be a closer game than most people think. It does indicate off of past performance a little bit of a degree because we just saw how the season ended, and I'm not 1,000% sold on Tampa Bay because they've had some really close calls that we're just like, wait a minute, what? I don't know if it's kind of like this thing like everybody has an off day or what, but you just can't have an off day far in a season. You couldn't have had one last week, and like say for Atlanta had won, we'd be looking at a different team going into the playoffs today. I think Atlanta would have been there, and Tampa would not have if Tampa had won or not. The Falcons own the tiebreaker. So the fact that they struggled against the Saints, let's be clear, this is always a game, and the Buccaneers always have a stupendous amount of time. When Jameis Winston was there, it just always looked like you just never knew who was going to win this matchup. It's always like that with those two teams. I think we're going to the absence of Chris Godwin, even though we have the three-head monster in Tampa, I think his absence is going to be felt when we're going into the playoffs more so than what we thought. He does have Mike Evans. He's got the guy down there, running back. I think that's his name. You can help me with. I think his name is Irby.
Bucky Irvin, yes.
Irving, yeah. He's got him. I mean, and he's really learned to lean on him a little bit more, and I think that's in the absence of Chris Godwin. And you just have to be really careful of Dan Quinn. He's been there before. Yes, he blew a Super Bowl lead, but Dan Quinn is not the head coach. He's been coordinator for Dallas in the past. He's also served as a head coach in Atlanta, and as such, had experience with coaching against this same Tampa team when he was part of the NFC South. So those players are still there. I think this may be situations where Jaden Daniels tries to do a CJ Stroud, like, hey, yeah, I might be a rookie, but I'm very much a very competitive rookie. And I think Baker to really stay on stakes, the clock management, and the less penalties overall. If they want to win this game, they're going to have to make sure that they keep the Washington off the field if they want to win this game.
So who wins?
I'm going to go with Baker and his crew, but it's going to be a close.
All right. Tampa Bay. Buffalo minus 9.5 versus Denver. Denver going into Buffalo. They're used to cold weather. They're cold weather. Again, a young quarterback versus one of the better defensive backfields in the league. They just beat Kansas City 38-0. I don't know what you do with that as far as going into this game. Who do you like? Do you like Buffalo or you like Denver?
Oh, I like Buffalo. Josh Allen has a different presence in the postseason every time. Every time their team gets to the postseason, it's almost like a renewed offense. And Sean Payton, kudos to him. As much as I hate to say that because I don't really care for him as a person, even from the South, and just him with the whole Russell Wilson disrespect just really stirred it up for me. But he's really revamped them into what he wanted it to be. Congratulations to him. And Bo Nix has really looked amazing as an offensive quarterback. Denver defense looks kind of like the old defense we've seen under the Manning era. I mean, they're starting to really get back in their stride. But today, this is Josh Allen, like I said. He's a different animal, almost like he's Josh Allen and they're the Bills. They're healthy. I mean, they got DeMar has been making some really big special plays with the special teams. DeMar Hamlin is who I'm speaking of. But Josh Allen and his entire crew, they're waiting for this. You know, they didn't make as far as they wanted to last season. This is their time to be renewed to prove 9.5. It's a very steep leap, but I'm willing to take it. I think this is going to be one that they Bills Mafia, these Broncos, instead of marching back across the map.
Okay. Philadelphia. Now remember, Buffalo wins. They play Baltimore. Philadelphia -5 versus Green Bay.
Oh, like I said, love hurts. That's my slogan. You guys can feel free to hashtag it and get just put my picture beside it, be trending. Jordan Love. This is where I was talking about. I think James J Train has been like looking at my notes. I'm gonna have to stop doing the oh my God, look what happened throughout the week with him, because now he's taking my words and using them on the platform, and I'm not getting my credit. But Mac, I just want to let you know, I'm glad I didn't give him the love first. He probably would have said that off the rip. God. Anyway, sorry, bro, I love you though. It's just I feel like Jordan Love is not gonna be at his optimum. An injury being cleared does not mean you're suddenly well. It just means you've cleared protocols to be able to play. The minimum standard to go get out up and take the field. He's still injured. Feel the elbow in his throwing hand. We've seen players throughout the entire season with different teams always come off the questionable list, and then all of a sudden they take one hit and there they are limping over to the sideline, and you're like, oh, there it is. It's re-aggravated. We don't want that. We want a good, clean football game. But this is one of those teams. They are absolutely high. They took a spiral down last year and was eliminated the first playoff, run with Tampa Bay. They do not want a repeat of that. On the side of that, Jalen Hurts, like I said earlier, has not played since week 16 concussed. We hope he's okay. We don't hear being concussed a lot. So that's kind of concerning, because we don't know what his level of play is going to be like out on the field. This is going to be one of those games that's going to come down to penalty. I don't even think it's a clock management issue. It's going to come down to penalty. It's going to come down to playing smart football and playing wise and making sure that he's protected, that nobody they're going to give him a special helmet today or what, those special helmets that's been coming out to protect players, but we just don't know what we're going to get. Today, I do think Philadelphia pulls this one out, much to the chagrin of a lot of Green Bay fans, because they're itching to get back in there. But I just don't know if it's enough. And I think there's another player that his name escapes me right now on the Green Bay team that is being questionable. That
one of their wide receivers is out. Number 9, I forget his name. He's out.
Okay.
He's out of the game too. So.
Yeah.
Christian Watson.
Yes.
That may factor in unless they're able to fill that gap in, kind of like Moore did yesterday, but not Zay Flowers. They depended more on likely a little bit more, and it was enough to get them to win. That's good for today, finding that plug to at least patch them over this game. So, I think I'm going to take Philadelphia.
Minnesota versus.
I love the analysis. No, but at the end of the day, the two score more points. Always the key to win, score more points than the other. Yeah. No, penalties happen. I mean, sometimes they're inexplicable. I can understand certain times that, you have to hold. And certain of these cornerbacks who get beat badly and they grab onto the receiver, unless they're saving a touchdown, you kind of wonder why they're even doing it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah. Minnesota -1 versus the Rams. Again, to me, I mean, two pretty evenly matched teams. I mean, Minnesota's defense may turn the ball over to the offense a little bit more than the Rams, but they are playing in Arizona. The Rams are the home team considered. I mean, they'll be if anybody travels, they'll be closer from LA than Minnesota. Who you got there? Minnesota -1.
So I didn't, unlike everybody else that was kind of swayed by what's going on in California, I wasn't swayed by that. I had already thought that the Vikings were the more solid team. Yeah, they're kind of evenly matched, but Sam Darnold we saw last week was just a hiccup. I mean, it was bound for him to come out. In fact, it was kind of frightening watching him like, oh my God, there's Sam from Carolina. There he is. He's back. But now I feel like they've had, a few days in between. This is the NFL big thing for me. That division is ultra competitive the entire season, with the exception of the Bears. And so it's almost been like the Lions, almost been like the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's all we've talked about the entire season. And so for that reason, I'm still solid thinking that this Vikings team, travel or not, no matter what's going on, they're going to have it together. They're going to look good. And, I mean, they only gave them a point because of the similarity on both sides of the ball. This one may come down to a field goal, guys. This may come down to literally the last few seconds, line them up, and field goal it out.
Yes, Sonia, you're pretty familiar, obviously, with Sam Darnold, not only because of all his years in the league, because of his stint with the Panthers. Is there any one single player during this playoff who has more at stake, perhaps? And I'm not talking about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen finally having to go to the Super Bowl. His individual performance more to lose than Sam Darnold, because if he has a terrible game, he's going to be a free agent. What do the Vikings do with him? If he plays a great game, even if the Vikings lose, people are not sure what to make out of Sam Darnold. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are great quarterbacks no matter what. But Sam Darnold, is he the Sam of Carolina? Is he the elite Sam, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Who is he? I mean, people are still trying to figure it out.
I mean, and Mac, if you'll allow me to digress for just a second to answer Jack's question. That's a really good question, Mac, because everybody else, they solidify their contracts. Even Baker Mayfield just got an extension last year. And nobody even talks about him being in Carolina that much anymore because he's made a name for himself in Tampa. And Tom Brady Jr., for all intents and purposes, the way Tampa looks at him. I'm kind of in the same mindset you are, Jack. I mean, Sam came from the Jets. You all had him up there for a little bit. In fact, he came to people were like, why are we signing? What has he done? And so he got us 5 games. Then the O-line started getting injured and all that bad stuff. I don't want to say good stuff, all that bad stuff. And then we saw him go down. Sam is only going to be as good as the people that are around him. That's the type of quarterback that he is. I feel like whatever team you put him on, if you put him with the Lions, he'll be good. If you put him with Texans, he'll be good because they have the O-line. If you put him in Atlanta, he probably will fare well because they have a good offense down there. Only as strong as those persons that are surrounding him. Put in a subpar situation like in Carolina or, God forbid, the Raiders, we're going to see a poor performing Sam. Sam is accentuated or weakened by those persons that are around him. So today is going to be pivotal for him. They're going to have to stay in because, like you said, his contract is up. We don't know. It may be one of those situations that they're like, you know what, Sam, we appreciate you during the season, but it just wasn't enough. Almost doesn't count. So that's my answer to that.
All right. So we're going to take a break. I'll be back with producers Linda's picks and my pick. But first, before we go, of course, we got the Just Ask Jack trivia question. So, Jack, I'm giving you another chance of having two. You can answer one of these answers of these two teams. You'll get full credit. Which teams have lost the most playoff games? In other words, which teams have the most
Which
playoff
one team or which teams?
There's two. There's two that are tied.
Yeah.
So if you give one, I'll give you full credit. So, folks, I mean, you can play along. Just don't Google it. I mean, guess, right? I mean, it's just a guess. You know who's been in the playoffs the most? Who might have lost the most, who might have won the most, but you know who's been there. It's not the Cleveland Browns, all right? I'll tell you that right now, folks. So we'll be back after this commercial, and I don't know what this guy is doing here. I have no idea why this guy is bothering me. I got things pop up. Do you have things that pop up on your screen and while you're in the I have no idea. Yeah, I got to clear the notifications and everything. But anyway, folks, we will be right back after I remove this. Come on, remove. Yeah, save the changes. I'm just talking out loud, folks. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks. Come on to me. Come on. Thank you. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks with the answer to that trivia question again. Which two teams have the most playoff losses? Jack only has to give me one. So let's see if that happens.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures. College football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds. NBA odds of division winners and playoffs. Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds. The National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds. And boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners. Also, during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
Yo, you already know it's your boy LCF. I just tore it up for Zodiac TV. Shout out DJ Epps. Oh man, it was great, man. We did an interview. Then I hit the stage. The crowd was amazing. They gave me all their energy. I gave them that energy back. Linked up with some dope artists in the building. Zodiac TV, man. Hey, we gonna celebrate for the rest of the night, you know what I mean? With some Bel Air. Shout out my nigga Rose. Holla at your boy. I mean, boss shit, you already know. But we tore it up, man. Performance was amazing. The set was amazing. Zodiac TV, shout out y'all boys, man. Thank you for having me. You already know I'm gonna come back. Your boy finna come back. You know what I mean? Go to work, did it all for nothing. Make sure y'all go get that single, available on all platforms. Let's go.
My girl just told me that she pregnant, we expecting the shit. So I had to buckle down, accelerate, no slowing down. Some people, that's why
Hello, this is Paul Semendinger, award-winning author and the host of the Dr. Sem Yankee Show and the Start Spreading the News podcast. And you are watching The Big Football Show, the very best football show in the entire world. And it's here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Enjoy.
Folks, we are back, and of course, I want to make sure that we have our music because Jack, as I saw backstage, is really thinking hard on this one. And I know Jack is going to get this. I have utmost confidence that Jack will get this question.
It's a sneaky question.
It's sneaky. Okay.
And I'll tell you what's a sneaky question. We're talking the history of the NFL.
Right.
Correct? The history of the NFL.
Right.
Some teams started decades after the other teams. So I'm going to have to think, 1930s, 40s, 50s, that counts as well. I mean, that's a real wild card. And you had certain franchises that went back very far, like the Lions, the Bears, the Packers. Okay? And, and you could compare them to teams like the Cowboys who came into existence in 1960, but the other teams had some decades on them. So one of the two, I'm going to have to go back and think of the old times. I'm not sure how often they win the playoffs. I know I could be wrong on this with the Green Bay Packers. I know they had a couple of great quarterbacks in Vaughn, Rodgers. And how many Super Bowls did they win? Usually it's good teams that have to have playoff losses. If you're a pathetic team and you're historically bad, like the Lions were for a lot of years during the Super Bowl era, maybe the Lions got playoff losses before the Super Bowl era, a good number of them. I don't know. So I'm going to have to say the Packers are one of them. Am I correct?
Give me your next. No, you're not. Give me your next answer, Jack.
Okay, so the next one, man, I'm going to have to then, if I miss that one, I'm not going to go with the Giants. I'm not going to go with the Bears because the Bears were much in the Super Bowl era. I'm going to have to think of a team that year after year the fan base was annoyed, kind of a little bit the way they are with the Steelers now getting bumped, where the Dolphins kept getting eliminated with Dan Marino and they kept going to the playoffs with Don Shula. I'm going to go with the Dolphins as another one.
You brought it closer, but there's two teams that went to the playoffs almost all the time. If you remember, started in the 60s, Jack, Minnesota and the Dallas Cowboys are tied with 31 playoff losses.
Is that of all time, though? Is that of all?
NFL.
No kidding.
Yeah. I was going to say the Cowboys, but I know the Minnesota Vikings.
What?
Well, if you think about it, the Vikings. Yeah, the Dallas has always been in the playoffs since they almost started. I mean, a couple years after.
Dallas would have been my next pick. I did mention them before.
Yeah.
But didn't they have a patch of maybe 15 years where they were missing the playoffs most of the years? Who knows? But they started 1960. Yeah.
So Dallas won. Minnesota was always in the playoffs too, with Tarkin and even with Joe Cap. I mean, they were always in the playoffs too. They did lose to Dallas a lot and a couple other teams. So, but anyway, that's the answer. Minnesota Vikings and the Dallas Cowboys are tied at 31. So Jack did mention Dallas. James says he was going to say Dallas, and it definitely was not the case.
I didn't say Dallas. They weren't one of my picks. I don't get credit. They were going to be my next pick coming on,
right.
But they were my top two, so I missed it.
What about Cleveland?
Cleveland, I mean, Cleveland didn't do a lot of playoffs after the 40s and 50s and 60s, right? They did some, but not as close to Dallas or Minnesota. Was always in the playoffs. The Panthers, of course, were not in that because they haven't been around that long, and they won when they were in the playoffs.
Right, and that's the only reason why people forget that. Like, we're still babies, and everybody wants to talk about our playoffs. Thank you for that, Mac.
Well, Curly Lambeau, I was thinking going far back, naming it Lambeau Field, that must have been an X amount of playoffs, maybe in the 1930s, 40s.
They won. Him and Lombardi both won a lot of playoff games. I mean, they might be on the list somewhere, Jack. They probably are, but they won a lot of playoff games. They went to a lot of titles. So that would be that. So let me give you Linda's picks. Linda did take the Chargers. She drank the Kool-Aid with most of us and got the loss. She did take Baltimore. She's going with Buffalo minus 9.5 at home, which most of us are going with. She is taking the Washington Commanders plus 3.5. I don't know if she thinks they're going to win outright or not, but she definitely takes them with the points. She likes Philadelphia minus 5 versus Green Bay, and she's taking Minnesota. She likes Minnesota because her daughter and son-in-law live in Minnesota, so that's that's what she.
I think all of you are taking the Kool-Aid with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't blame you with the
Why not? That's a good reason for that.
Playing poorly going into the game. I can understand that, but I think all of you are really drinking the Kool-Aid here. You don't realize how good the Packers are in comparison to the Eagles.
Oh.
It's a virtual toss-up game, that game.
I don't think so.
I took the Chargers. I took Baltimore. Buffalo minus 9.5. I almost took Denver because of the points.
Me too.
Josh Allen does have a chance. Does have a habit of throwing interceptions sometimes, and Buffalo's the only reason why I think Buffalo's defense will shut down the rookie quarterback. I think they win by 10 points. It's going to be close to that 9.5. So I was a little nervous.
Can't wait till you guys are talking about my Panthers next year the same way. I can't wait.
Buffalo is more likely to win by 20 points than to lose the
playoffs, James. I don't know what the laughter is.
Yeah. I don't know what Jack's thinking about with Green Bay, just that was his pick in the beginning of the year. On paper, on the field, Philadelphia is just a better team. Saquon Barkley is not only a great running back, he's a great weapon. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. They got 2 tight ends that can catch the ball. A.J. Brown is a horse. Green Bay's not going to be able to stop him. If they try to stop him, then they go to Jalen Smith, who's probably one of the best route runners in the league. And then you got Goddard. And then not only that, you got Jalen Hurts. They couldn't let him play the last game. They didn't. They kept him out. So that concussion was.
Listen to Sonia.
Jalen Hurts will run. Jalen Hurts will run. Barkley will have over 100 yards. Jalen Hurts will almost have 100 yards on the ground. Green Bay cannot stop the run. Green Bay's we mentioned his receiver being hurt. Going against Philadelphia, listen, Green Bay should score some points. There's no doubt about it. Philly's defense is good. They're not the best in the league, but that offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles is the best in the league. They're all pros over there. They're going to open holes. They're going to hold the rush off of Green Bay. I think Philly wins by a couple touchdowns, Jack, to be honest with you.
Who has a coaching edge, the Packers or the Eagles? Matt LaFleur against Nick Sirianni. We never talk about the coaching, aspect of it as well.
I think LaFleur is better. But Kellen Moore is underrated. The offensive coordinator is underrated.
I was just gonna say that. Who's got the better coordinators? I mean, I don't know. Sirianni to me is a figurehead. He's just kind of a goofball that I don't know where they got him from. But anyway,
that's a little harsh. That's a little harsh.
He's a goofball. He smiles. He laughs. He argues with the fans. He's over there arguing with the fans, Jack. What head coach goes over there? That's like the Carolina owner throwing drinks at the fans.
That's what we do.
He's arguing with his own fans, not even the opposite fans. He's arguing with his own fans. It's just
you know what happened? I was talking with somebody in Jacksonville. A fake cat.
This is a true story. When the USFL in the 1980s was in existence, the Tampa Bay Bandits, their owner was John Bassett, a very well-known owner. And I remember I'm sitting in the stands with a friend of mine, and he's a Tampa Bay Bandits fan, and he sees the owner at the sidelines. He yells, "Hey, John Bassett, I want to talk to you about the team. Come here." And Bassett turns around and walks to the stands, before the game, and is actually engaging them and talking. I was kind of like stunned. If I'm a known, I don't know what I do that, but yeah.
You know who was the coolest? Before I get to the rest of my picks, the best player that I saw. Of course, everybody knows. I'm trying to now. I got a brain freeze. Damn it. He played with the Raiders. He played with Matt Millen. the middle linebacker of the Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers. He's leaving the field. The GM of the Patriots said something to him. He slugged him. He just punched him right in his mouth. I mean, anyway, it was you got to see that picture. It's hilarious.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, he was something else. I like Tampa Bay beating Washington. I think Washington's way too young. I think Jaden Daniels throws some interceptions. I like Tampa Bay's defense, running game. Baker Mayfield's going to win this game. I mean, Baker could throw for 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. The running game's better than Washington's defense. Their defense gives up a lot of points. And I just think the experience of Tampa Bay wins this game. I think this is the only game they win in the playoffs. And I like the Rams.
You know,
I love the Rams here. I think that by far. I like their running game. I like their passing game. I like everything about the Rams against the Vikings here. The Vikings and Sam Darnold go down in flames today, as they did against Detroit. The Rams defense is very underrated, guys. They got a rookie pass rusher over that's unbelievable. They got a good secondary. I just think Minnesota, I think Sam Darnold has brought them as far as he can. Had a great season. Hats off to Sam. But he had a great offensive wide receiver group, a good running back, a great defense. I mean, put him in a lot of positions. He had his chance against Detroit, made some mistakes that he shouldn't have made, and I think this game is going to be too big for Darnold. I don't think it's too big for Matt Stafford. So I like.
I'm nervous if I'm Minnesota because they really have to regroup. If they're able to regroup, they should. When you mentioned the playoff experience, I'm tired of hearing playoff experience. They once asked Bill Russell before an NBA game, the playoffs. And I remember the broadcaster, Jack Twyman, says, how valuable is that playoff experience? What does it mean? And Bill Russell said, not a thing.
Didn't they win
like not a thing? Hey, you get a little carried away with playoff experience. These guys play each week, and they're big games.
It's a different level. It's a different. First of all, Bill Russell played in 9 championships. He has the most champions ever, so he played in playoffs a lot, and then playoff experience, I believe, helped him. Second of all, the playoff is just that much level higher, Jack. There's no more game next week. You win, go on. You lose, you go on.
Because of the hoopla, that I understand. But
you got to win the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, to me, this is it. You're going to find out that Washington is too young. You're going to find out Sam Darnold cannot handle the pressure of winning a playoff game. I think I said Philadelphia wins by a couple touchdowns. Buffalo, that 9.5 scares me. It really does. I don't know if they.
So we should look at every game and look at the pressure situation. Meanwhile, you're saying you were tempted to go with the Broncos to at least cover. And now you're saying, doesn't Buffalo have the experience with Josh Allen?
I took
Why
Buffalo.
would we even be hedging,
I took Buffalo because 9.5 against a good Denver defense is a lot of points. That's all I'm saying. That's a good defense.
Rookies have very limited experience clearly in the playoffs is their first year, but to get far into it, I think there's only like 1 or 2. Who's Ben Roethlisberger got to the AFC Championship before they lost in his rookie year. I don't think there's not many more that have gotten that far.
It's not really a question of being rookie. How often does any team get to a Super Bowl? It's not because the guy is a rookie.
I'm just saying with Washington, we're talking about Washington here. There's very limited resources around Jaden Daniels, let alone him being a good player, or a rookie. So, yeah, I just think I have what we're talking about experience with what Mac is saying. I agree with Tampa Bay having the experience clearly and much more depth on their team to be a little bit more dominant to win at least to win the game. This game.
Not that Jaden Daniels is not a very good quarterback, but I think he's going to try and do too much because they're going to get down. I think he's going to throw interceptions. I think he's going to have turnovers. I just think that that is the Washington offense is him running around making throws and running with the ball. That's a lot. That's a lot for your first year going against a seasoned team. That's all I'm saying.
But let's look at the quarterbacks today who've been around a while. And at one point, they were inexperienced, and it didn't affect them. Jordan Love was an inexperienced quarterback last year. Look what he did in the playoffs. So I don't want to hear, the experience factor.
He won one game.
And all that.
He won one game.
And the second game, he had wait. He had his team ahead of the 49ers, had the Packers.
He won one game, Jeff.
Those would have been two monster upsets that he would have
won
caught.
one game, and it wasn't because of him. It's because they ran the ball. They ran the ball all over the Cowboys. The Cowboys couldn't stop the run.
Yeah, I do want to kind of pivot in for just a second, guys. I was looking at Jaden Daniels' stats, and when you look at his stats compared to Baker Mayfield's stats, you could tell they're rookie stats. I mean, at his highest, there were some games, guys, Jaden Daniels only had 6 yards for the game, and that was the Carolina game. Their defense carried them through that game. At his highest, he only had, looks like, 275 on one of his games. So when you look at stats like that, that's when you know vet versus rookie is going to come into play. And I do want to pivot back for one quick second about the Sam Darnold question, Jack. I also looked up some stuff on him. Sam Darnold's already been with 4 teams in the last 5 years. That's going to be very significant because for a couple of those teams, he was considered a backup, and he just morphed into this first starting position because either teams didn't have a choice because of injuries or what have you. But if he doesn't do something this season, I don't know what we see with Sam Darnold. I really hope it's not a situation like Jameis Winston that you kind of just see him gradually fade into the dark. Y'all know the meme where Homer Simpson's coming out of the bush and then he's going slowly back in once your team is eliminated from the playoffs. I hope it's not that type of season, but we may see that.
Well, you made a good point that we're not sure about. Is Sam Darnold only the type of quarterback who plays to his talent? He has enormous talent at Minnesota. You put him in a situation where there's somewhat similar talent, maybe he could thrive. When he was with the Jets, the jury was still out on them when they moved on from him. And the reason they moved on from Sam Darnold, because the Jets had the number 2 overall pick in the draft. If the Jets were not drafting that high, let's say they were drafting 15th, chances are they would have held on to Sam Darnold. So he wasn't a failure. Same thing with Baker Mayfield at Cleveland. They had a chance to get Deshaun Watson, who at the time was an elite quarterback. That's why the Browns moved on from Baker Mayfield, not because Baker Mayfield couldn't necessarily handle the job, because he did have a couple of good years at Cleveland. And Sam Darnold did still have some promise to stick around with the Jets. And we'll see what's available for you at the time.
I mean, but I guess for me, it's like, how long do you give a quarterback with your franchise before you move on? Are you like how Atlanta is like literally trying on quarterbacks like shoes down here? They're paying, they're doing the Amazon thing. They're buying these quarterbacks and then returning them because it's not what they want, like when Amazon takes any returns. I mean, then you see some teams that find their franchise quarterback and they stick with them. They nurture them. They grow them up. Is it better? And this is just for everybody, Mac. If you just let me ask you guys this, and I would just love your opinion because this is something I've been thinking about all season. Would you rather have a team that gets a draft quarterback, nurtures them, acclimates them, build your team around that specific quarterback? Or would you rather have one of these veterans that's in the league that say they were with the team, they did really good, like a Sam Darnold type, but then you sign them and you don't know if you're going to get Vikings Sam Darnold or Carolina Sam Darnold or whatever other teams he was with? Would you rather have a new quarterback that comes in from college and you cultivate them? Or would you rather have an experienced winning quarterback and go with that person for at least 5 years, like a full contract?
Well, Matt could answer that with the Giants. Would he rather have them sign Sam Darnold as a free agent take Cam Waters, Shador Sanders. If one of the two
that's not fair because you're limiting me to Sam Darnold. Listen, I think different teams are better with quarterbacks than others, right? If you look at Kansas City, for example, right? Patrick Mahomes sat on the bench. They knew he was going to be the starter. They still had a very good starter in front of them, but they knew Patrick Mahomes was the future, right? So I mean, they knew that, and they moved on. Then you look at the Jags, and now you look at the Chargers last night with Herbert. I mean, is Herbert going to be that quarterback? I mean, the jury has just went out again. Listen, I'm just saying, Jack, is he going to be the quarterback to lead them to a Super Bowl?
Matt, I think a better example was Sonia brought up, nurturing a guy the way it backfires. Mitch Trubisky, the Bears hung with him a long time. And they hung with him too long. If a guy's not your guy, he's not your guy. You better cut your losses. Sometimes you're not sure.
Mitch Trubisky, I think, was there only 3 years, Jack. I don't think he went for a long time. It was 3 years before.
It wasn't working.
And they took Justin Fields, and they ruined Justin Fields, and they took Caleb Williams, and they're on their way to ruining Caleb Williams. Listen. It is. I don't know what teams do better with quarterbacks than others. I can tell you, Cincinnati got Joe Burrows, who was a great quarterback, but still a rookie. He grew, right? He grew. He's a great quarterback right now. Again, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, whoever worked with him, he's back again. So I guess Moore is doing a really good job with Jalen Hurts right now. Baker Mayfield confuses me. I don't know what is Baker Mayfield a Super Bowl quarterback?
I think so. I don't
know. Jack, remember the guy who was a quarterback for the Raiders, or maybe the Bucks, number 12, and he had a great year, and he ended up going to Super Bowl and winning it. He was not a big name either. I don't even remember the guy's.
You're not thinking of Trent Dilfer, who wasn't. No.
He was like a running quarter. He moved around a lot. Wasn't a big name. Ends up
not Rich Gannon when they lost it.
Gannon.
Rich Gannon. They beat the Raiders.
Yeah, Rich Gannon.
No, was he their quarterback that year? Wait, Gannon was the quarterback of the Raiders.
Gannon was the quarterback in 2002 when they played Tampa Bay.
And he was the MVP too for the Super Bowl that year, 2002.
Right. That's who kind of Baker Mayfield reminds me of. He could take a team to the Super Bowl with a real good team, but he's not going to be the reason why you go to the Super Bowl.
He could be a difference maker certain games, Baker Mayfield. He has been a difference maker in games.
I want to say this about Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold has made a name for himself this season. I don't think I had him as a bust up to this point. I mean, up to the point when he got selected by Minnesota, but he's made a believer out of me. I'll be honest with you, and I think a lot of that has to do with Kevin O'Connell. Minnesota, the situation that they were in last year, I had them at the bottom. I thought Chicago was going to be better than Minnesota, and I was wrong, totally wrong. And I think part of it is the rejuvenation of Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold hadn't had a season like this. This is probably his best season. He's thrown over 35 touchdowns, maybe 12 interceptions or 13, something like that. He's had a great year by all intents and purposes, and he made himself money. He's going to have a job somewhere. Some team is going to pick him up.
We're not going to a point. I'm just speculating the way Kevin O'Connell is thinking. They got Daniel Jones, and everyone's assuming they're going to trade Daniel Jones if I can for draft choice. Keep this in mind. Kevin O'Connell remembers clearly that Daniel Jones beat him in a playoff game a couple of years ago and looked good during that game. And he's thinking, I can do a lot with Daniel Jones. We want Sam Darnold back, but if he walks, we still have J.J. McCarthy, who we're getting ready. But I think he's thinking, I could slot Daniel Jones in, who could do a lot of what Sam Darnold is doing. That's what I think the mindset is. So I think they're going to offer Sam Darnold a decent amount for the year. Maybe they'll franchise tag him for 1 year, but that's steep, $41 million. But
I think we've spent way too much time this show talking about Sam Darnold. The Vikings are no longer in the playoffs.
But they're talking, but a lot of people talking about it this way.
Listen, he sucked during the Detroit game.
But that's Detroit. That's Detroit.
Listen, you're even with these guys. This is for the playoffs. This is for seeding.
They're gonna beat the Rams.
We'll see.
They're gonna beat the Rams.
We'll see. We'll see.
It'll be tough, though. They'll beat the Rams ultimately, but I think it's going to be a close game.
We'll see. I take Stafford over Sam Darnold any day of the week. Some NFL news. Watson with surgery on the same ACL as he got operated on before. Cleveland's got to be drafting a quarterback, unless Sam Darnold's available. I don't even want to talk about Sam Darnold. I know why I said that, but I did. Listen,
Cleveland might trade back to get multiple players because they have so many runs.
They need a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Matt. But you said it best. Need. Are these guys? Are they sold on them? I'm not sold on Cam Ward. Who said don't take Cam Ward for the sake of taking Cam Ward? It's a big mistake. If you're not sold on Shedeur Sanders being a franchise quarterback, why go there? I mean, get multiple players. Don't
you
just go.
And future draft picks. You can get a first rounder next year and this year. What are Cleveland number 2?
More than that.
I can see the Cleveland Brown fans. The Cleveland Brown fans will go crazy if they don't draft a quarterback. They will go absolutely nuts.
This is been a mess from the beginning. Let's be clear.
First overall in '99s. I mean, so have they ever had a good quarterback in Cleveland? I mean, come on.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, a long time ago. That's what I'm saying. A very long time ago. We're talking about.
I mean, Bernie Kosar was pretty good.
Yeah, he was great. But what was that? The '80s? That's. I mean, if they wait. My point is, if they waited that long to get another quarterback, they can wait for the draft.
You think the fans are going to wait another 20 years? Come on.
If I was a business owner and I depended on what the fans think, I'd be out of business.
Well, that's who buys the tickets and buys your jerseys and that's who keeps you in business, buddy. Right? I mean, if you're not worried about it, I don't know what you're saying there. So anyway,
I agree with Jack on this one. I would get a whole bunch of picks and maybe get a quarterback and maybe in the second round or something.
You know what you do? If you could trade back, get a bunch of picks, and maybe Quinn Ewers, if he's a second or third round selection, you take him, and I don't know who else. He wouldn't start immediately, but then you get bridge quarterbacks. You could always pick up somewhere. You could always pick them up somewhere.
And I know you don't want to talk about it, Mac. Like you said, maybe Sam Darnold's the guy there, but he's probably not going to be in a good situation.
What do you think, Sonia? I don't want to talk about that. What do you think, Sonia?
They've rumored Justin Fields to be going to the Browns, but I will say this ever since this team, the Browns, got purchased in 2012 by the Haslam family, it's been even worse. When they went out there and almost like stood up and propped up Deshaun Watson on this whole no matter what's happening off field, we're going to stand by him and we're going to sign him no matter what. I knew then that was a fatal mistake because I felt like they were so big on trying to almost get involved with what he had going on with the judicial system that they forgot, like, you need to be making sure that this dude can actually perform. He got out there and every season it's been something with him. He's like a bowl of Rice Krispies. He's just snap, crackle, and pop every single season that he's been a Brown. And the off-field stuff did not help it. The Browns are garbage, and if they don't draft a quarterback, I mean, we have these teams that we see that the fans are loyal no matter what. They're not like the Panthers. They still come to games and they, pack the seats or whatever. But they're going to get sick of that. But this team is under new ownership, and 2012 was not that far ago. They need to really value and get the fans' input or whatever as far as what they need to do, or they may start suffering down the road long term.
Do you feel, Sonia, you're saying, like, for example, if James were a Brown fan, ownership should get the for the guys like James to make their decisions. And guys like me who are fans, they should get our decisions, you know.
Not make the decisions.
I mean, they should know what they're doing. I mean, I agree with you as far as the draft goes. I laugh at these scouts with the combines, and even Mac will agree. I have a pretty good track record of saying position players. They overthink things sometimes, but at the time, you have to look at how things were at the time zone. You're not now. Now it's a disaster, the Deshaun Watson contract. And at the time, he was an elite quarterback. At the time they got him, he was elite at the time.
I just feel like his elite or athleticism or whatever, that Kevin Stefanski has turned into Kevin Stanksky, because this dude from the beginning had too much drama. Like, it's one thing to have little stuff. Y'all, this case was one of the biggest, like, it was almost under the Me Too movement. This case was too big to take on, to bring that type of drama to an already struggling franchise.
You know, me and Jack talked about this, and yes, at one time, Watson was probably a top 5 quarterback. I think everybody would agree with that if they watched him. But there is no way that a lawyer calling you every day and saying, we got a new one, we got a trial date, we got this. There is no way that does not affect you. And I think that really screwed him over. Tom Brady, is he announced? Should he be an announcer or an owner? Can't do both, I don't think, because you can't be in the draft, you can't be training quarterbacks, you can't be doing all this stuff and then announcing your team or any other team. I mean, I don't know what the NFL is going to do. They let him slide by so far. Does the NFL come and put their foot down?
I mean, they paid for him to take announcing. He went to some type of announcing classes. I'm sorry, Jack, I didn't mean to cut you off. He went to some type of announcing classes, but they put so many stipulations on him, like they would anybody else, about he can't be here, he can't be there. I don't know if this is gonna be long term or not, because of the limitations that are in place, that he can't be on this field, he can't be talking to this team. If you can't do that, you're not going to be a valid announcer. At some point, you got to get out of the booth. You got to be able to at least put your own perspective on stuff. And I think this is a spider web of a line. I mean, you know, spider webs are very thin. It's not even a line. It's a spider web. Like, they are literally tattering on crossing over. So I don't think this thing is going to go long term. I think Tom's going to have to choose one or the other. I mean, he's ownership over here. He wants to get this person over here. He wants to be involved in everything going on with the Raiders, as he should, because he's part owner. You got to have to pull it back, Tom. Focus on your TB12 health situation and your team ownership, and let that be that.
I mean, I like announcers who play for team, affiliated for team, wanting their team to win. That's why I was never the biggest Tim McCarver fan, in baseball, because Tim McCarver could be working for a team, and he was completely indifferent. You got the feeling he couldn't care less whether they won or lost. He'd call it exactly down the middle. But announcers have to be objective. While you know they want a team, like Troy Aikman, he calls the games on Fox. When the Cowboys are playing, you kind of know he wants the Cowboys to win. He's a Cowboy fan, but to me, he's very objective. To me, that's my perception watching him play. I think Brady can be the same way calling the games for Fox, that he could be very objective and very professional because he was that way on the field. But should he be doing it? If you're an owner for a team with influence, if you're minority owner, it's one thing. You might not have influence, but how could you pay that guy all the money at Fox and allow him to be a minority owner? I kind of feel it has to be one or the other, but I have an open mind for listening to an argument, the other way.
James, you agree?
I just think that being there's a level of conflict of interest there. If I'm him, I don't know. If I'm only 10%, I would just the amount of money that they're giving you at Fox and that much control. I think I would just lean towards what I'm doing with the commentating and everything else that you have in Fox versus dealing with, and then with the Raiders. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's ownership, but even as small as it is, it's still ownership. I still would just wait until I'm done with Fox and then go into ownership. I mean, he's Tom Brady. He's going to have his
9 years. James has 9 years left on his contract. That's
they signed him like he was getting a football contract.
It's still, but I mean, for how much money though?
He's getting
he's $375 million.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's retirement for me, man. That's just, if I'm Tom Brady, I wouldn't even. And then all the headaches in the Raider organization, I don't even know if I want to be a part of that. I don't know. I just think that I would do this. It seemed like a much easier gig being with Fox than it is with what's going on with the Raiders. I just wouldn't.
More than money, James, he likes to juice the excitement of being there, the decision making, building a franchise up. I mean, believe me, he likes that an awful lot. And the Fox job isn't just broadcasting, like I think yesterday,
right?
Talking show. He schmoozes, with the sponsors, to this, to that. So he has more value to Fox than just being in the booth. And we see what Tom Brady is as a broadcaster. He's not critical of anyone. He calls the game. He, gives us insights. He's pretty conservative when you think of it. I mean, he doesn't get on players and get on coaches. That's why
I think this is very unique, right? Where nothing like this has ever happened before. I don't know how much money he makes from having 10% ownership of the Raiders. I don't know if it's even more than he gets from Fox. I don't know. I do know that he's trying to get Belichick to come over to the Raiders. He actually went and talked to him about it.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
He did. Yes, he did. I was going to bring that up. Yes, he did. He talked to him this week. It's everywhere.
Jack for some reason for some reason Jack doesn't believe it when I say it. He'll believe it when you say it, though. But the point I'm making, he did contact Bill Belichick about the Raiders coaching job. That was reported, Jack. The thing is, if you're going to be able to try to get a coach from, I know it's from college, but if you're available to get a coach, if you're going to be involved in the draft, if you're going to be help building a team as Davis said he's going to be, there's a problem there. And I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. It's going to be his decision, but the NFL should do something about it because he is part of another team and he's supposed to be broadcasting and being bipartisan, by whatever, which he's not. He's a Raiders owner.
Yeah, he's a Raiders owner, and he doesn't, he's super competitive. The thing that's going to come out is he going to weigh his ownership, his minority ownership with the Raiders over being an announcer or what have you. It's also going to look at how much would he be owed if he pulls out of this contract so very early, because 10 years is a long time. He still has another 9 years. $375 million is a lot, but he's more hands-on. Like, he became a minority owner with the Raiders, not just to sit back and collect a check. He's going to want to be more involved, especially as a former player. He wants to try to build this up. He did talk to Bill Belichick about 3 days ago. Belichick was not interested. He did have a conversation with him. It's everywhere. So NFL Network is everywhere that he had this conversation. Belichick wants to give himself some opportunity to see what he can do on a college level with University of North Carolina. And Belichick had been unapproached for the last year. And now that he finally has traction, now he's growing traction again. And so Belichick was like, no, let me stay over here and see how this works out now. But because Tom wants to be an active recruiter for the Raiders, we're going to see that at some point, either Fox is going to have to draw the line for him, or the Raiders organization going to draw the line. But we're going to have to see which one he's going to have to put his talents into more, because he's so competitive.
But with that said, I don't think it would affect the way Brady would ever call an NFL game. We could talk conflict of interest. I think even if he called a Raider game, he would call it very objectively. You know, because he's not the type of broadcaster who gets on a guy for not hustling or for this or for that. He gives us the insight to the game. So I honestly think it wouldn't affect his performance in the booth.
I mean, we'll see, because it's one thing to call a game that you used to play for that team and you've retired, and another thing to call a game for a team you actually currently have ownership in. We'll have to just see. We haven't seen that play out yet. But hopefully he'll remain a professional.
I mean, they have people that scout all the time. They have film or whatever. Brady's calling a game, the Chiefs versus somebody. They're playing the Chiefs the next week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Brady might say to maybe the defensive coordinator, hey, look, on third down, I seen these guys do that? Could he do that?
Oh, wow.
He could. The possibility is there. Will he do it? I mean, maybe not, but the fact that the thought is there, like you said, is it's possible. And that would be considered conflict of interest.
Yeah,
he knows how to read defense.
John Madden,
he knows how to read. He knows how to read defense. He could probably be an offensive coordinator. That might be something else he could share if he could. I mean, I don't know. As you said, I'm not saying Tom Brady would do this, but it could happen, right?
It's Tom Brady. We've seen him do everything.
John Madden, for example, loved the Raiders, had a great relationship with Al Davis, didn't really get fired. He decided he didn't want to coach anymore. Great relationship with the Raiders. He was a Raider through and through. Yet he would call Raider games on TV. No one ever thought conflict of interest, John Madden.
He's retired.
But he didn't have ownership either.
Because he was John Madden. They loved his personality, so no one would call that. I don't think it would be an issue.
He wasn't part of the Raiders organization, Jack. He was a part owner.
Right. But would you agree with me with this? Tom Brady has too much pride in himself and in his professionalism to start hedging and favoring the Raiders during a broadcast. I honestly feel he has too much pride and, couldn't look himself in the mirror if he didn't call the game very objectively. And the Raiders aren't good enough to get prime time games. I don't
think they're worried about him calling the game, Shaq. I think what the other teams will say, if I'm the Chiefs or if I'm the Chargers or whatever, and Brady is calling my game and he's watching my game, what's to stop him from saying, hey, on 3rd and 7, they blitz from the right side. This is a linebacker that comes. What's to stop him? There's nothing to stop him from doing that. So I'm not saying he'd do it. I don't know. But the point is, if he wants the Raiders to start winning, there's a possibility he could do that. And that's the only thing I'm saying.
Especially with the history of Spygate and Deflategate, you just don't put it past to say, now, I'm not saying those things actually happen or they're true or not. It's just the fact that those things were out there. And these are things that teams are going to be looking at and saying, like, okay, this guy is that competitive. Why is he not competitive at this level as well to put, something in an advantage of the Raiders, versus said, opponent?
Possible. We don't know.
Right.
Deion Sanders said he will guide his son on what teams to play for in the NFL. Some teams he does not want his sons to play for. This is nothing new.
I wish he would stay out of that. I'm so tired of that.
It happened before. It's happened before.
The Mannings. Yeah. It happened with the Mannings.
Archie Manning did it with the Mannings. I mean,
I know. But still, to say the team you don't want him to play for is limiting. You don't know the potential of your child just because you don't want them to play there. I feel like that's inhibiting them. I mean, I may be saying this, but I want them to have the creative flow to decide to make their own decisions. At some point, you got to cut the apron strings. You've had him under your leadership all these years. You've coached him and cultivated him at college. Let him be a man and choose where he wants to go. End of story.
Cam Newton made a good point on ESPN the other day talking about Shedeur Sanders. He's been coached by Deion since he's been 8 years old. And let's say Deion became his coach in the NFL. How would that go in the locker room? Would he bench Deion? I mean, Shedeur wasn't playing well. There are like so many kind of like elements involved, but you make a great point with Archie Manning, with his son, with Eli, what went on. Somehow Deion Sanders is an easier mark because of his personality, his flamboyancy. Yep. he did the same thing that Archie Manning did, everyone would get all over him because it's Archie Manning. You know, he was given a certain amount of slack.
Agreed.
You know, and I, you know, I hate to say it, but it happens. You get a flamboyant black man sometimes, like Deion Sanders, compared to a conservative good guy like Archie Manning, and the perception kind of is different, you know.
I mean, let me just.
Deion should keep his mouth shut because Shador's draft status might drop a little. He might scare you off.
Nobody want to deal with your meddling daddy. Okay, that's the end of the story. Nobody want to deal with your meddling daddy. They got to do with it's like just drama. And I'm gonna say this, Jack, and everybody else gonna get it mad. Let me just put the plug in. The Mannings, they do try to dictate stuff. Look at how our Super Bowl was freaking tanked. Okay, that was tanked. The Panthers were cheated because of what the Mannings did. They're sickening. They have tried to take over the whole NFL, and I just want to put that out. They put the Panthers run off into the sunset. Peyton Manning, good old Peyton Manning. He couldn't lose the Super Bowl to the little bitty Carolina Panthers. That's what happened. So that transition from the player to the team.
Sony's got a little PTSD there.
Athletes take bad knocks at times. Like, I'm a big defender of Cam Newton. That one play in the Super Bowl, they say, oh, he should have dove. You know, he was on a certain angle. With all the hits that guy took during his career, to even question Cam
That's
Newton.
right. Look at Mac's face. Mac's like, no, we're not talking about the Carolina Panthers, Sonya.
No, I don't mind that. I mind talking about Cam Newton. That's who I mind talking about.
Yeah.
Cam Newton
I
had
wish
his
he'd
time.
get a new Taylor. His outfits are ridiculous.
I mean, Cam Newton in his prime. Cam Newton's prime was a very, very good quarterback. I give it to him. Yeah,
yes.
I give it to him.
We're gonna have.
I know. Not a great thrower of the ball. I'll tell you that. He's not one of the best throwing quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, but he was a winner. So I give Cam his due.
2015.
I'm going to have the NFL record for most passing rusher yards by a quarterback.
But he couldn't throw a 5-yard out, for Christ's sakes. He couldn't throw the ball 5 yards on an out.
He was in 2015, man.
Oh my gosh! Right.
Please,
thank you, J Train.
Mike Tomlin. What's your guys' opinion on Mike Tomlin?
Oh my gosh!
Should he stay or should he go?
I think he's burned out. I hate to say it. One of my favorite coaches of all time is burned out. I think in Pittsburgh. I don't know what he's feeling inside. It's just. And they haven't had a lead for the last 5 games. You know, the season's over now. The way they kind of lost it, and he couldn't get them to regroup at all, as opposed to D'Amico Ryan with the Texans, the way he had that energy. Tomlin doesn't seem to have that energy anymore. He wouldn't be one of my first coaching hires the way he is right now if he were available.
Yeah, I mean sorry, you said off air that he probably should take a sabbatical, and I was thinking about that. I agree with you. I think this is kind of the situation with Sean Payton when he left the Saints for 1 year. He took time off, and now look at him right now. He's back. He's excited about football, and they're in the playoffs. So potentially the situation can occur for Mike Tomlin too if he decides to do that. But it does. I have to agree with everybody here. It does look like he's burnt out.
I mean, I'm going to just put this out there. Last year, this whole topic came up. It was a little bit of a dual war. That was a similar conversation. And, it tends to be anytime the media jumps on something, it's almost like ownership is propelled to get involved once they start seeing it gain traction. We've heard about these Mike Tomlins possibly, going down to other teams within the New York, New Jersey area, geographically close to where he is now. And it didn't get any traction. I think his daughter went to college somewhere and they were talking about he may, go over there. I think Philadelphia or somewhere as a different role. I can't remember the team. But just 11 hours ago, Sports Illustrated has now gotten part of this. And the topic is wild card reaction. Steelers need to rebuild, maybe trade Mike Tomlin, as well as talking about his cowardly decision between the Steelers-Ravens game. And then he has a no trade clause, guys. That's the thing. However, there's always ways around things. And then the beginning of the playoffs, announcers were referring to him as, winning coach. And I always said in my mind, he's not a winning coach. He's just a non-losing. He's made it to the playoffs. Now the dialogue has switched to a non-losing coach. So they've even started to switch the narrative. I think that Pittsburgh is in another situation like Atlanta and like the quarterback situation we talked about, these other good venues, these good organizations, that they have not found a quarterback since Roethlisberger, and it has gotten just worse. They thought Russell Wilson was their fix, and now he's gone from dangerous back to just danger bus. And then they're getting ready to get rid of Justin Fields. At the end of the day, I think maybe what you all are saying about the sabbatical will be good, but the thing that I'm concerned is if Mike Tomlin goes out for a sabbatical, does he come back? Do we see him do a Sean Payton and come back? Or does he just say, you know what? This is better for me. I've been at this league for a very long time. I mean, he's in his 50s. He may be just like, I mean, that's not old, but he just maybe, I've got my money. I don't want to put the mental fortitude into anything else. I want to enjoy my money and be done with my family.
That's it. He might not want to pay the price, those long hours. Once he gets a sabbatical, like Jimmy Johnson thought, Bill Parcells, you see another part of life. You don't want the grind anymore. But some guys live for it, like Belichick lives for the grind. We don't know how the inner person feels.
Well, Bill Cowher is a great example because Bill Cowher was the last Pittsburgh coach, right? So he left, and he did think about coming back in the beginning, but he finally, no, I'm not going to do that. They're not going to fire.
Yeah, Rooney's
not going to fire.
Yeah, he's going to have to step back himself.
Is not going to fire Mike Tomlin.
It's hard to walk away completely.
Coaches are proud. He's a proud guy, and finishing 8-8, 9-8, 8-9. It's hard to get them first round draft choices near the top where you can get a rookie quarterback or a edge rusher or some kind of athlete that will turn the things around, right? They're always going to pick near the bottom. I don't know. I don't know what Mike Tomlin's going to want to do. I think that who are they going to replace him with? You can say that too. I mean, who's going to be a better coach than Mike Tomlin? I don't know.
You make a great point, Matt. We haven't discussed with this. If Mike Tomlin wants to stay, you're the Steelers. How can you fire Mike Tomlin? I mean, are you really going to improve? You see, Mike Tomlin would get another job very quickly if he really wanted it. Someone hires him. And the Steelers don't fire coaches. They're the most stable in that regard. So he stays. But I think maybe it's Sonia who mentioned it a while ago, eventually ownership gets worn down by the fan base. The fan base is going to become unhappy in Pittsburgh, and finally ownership can't take it anymore. I think that's what's going to happen to the Giants next year if they get off to a slow start. He's going to start going on John Mara, the owner. The fan base.
You think about it. Yeah. One more thing before we go. If you think about it, how many teams would have loved to have been in the playoffs the last 5 years that haven't been in there, and would have loved to have that 9-8 record, or sort of like the Cowboys being 12-5. They didn't make it this year, but how many teams would have loved to have been in the playoffs at 12-5 the last few years? I mean, we sit back and we say that. I would love the Giants to be in the playoffs 5 years in a row. I imagine everyone here, the Jets, the Saints, I think everybody would love to have their team in there. So, I know you got to win the big one eventually. You can't get knocked out the first round, but you might get something worse than you got there right now. And that's the thing I would be worried about if I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Thank you for joining us. NFL Download tonight. I know Sonia want to come in tonight too?
Yes.
Okay, Sonia, me, and James. Jack, do you want to come into the NFL Download tonight too? No.
No, I got another commitment, Mac. I mean,
he ain't doing nothing but eating crackers and drinking stew.
He's watching TV. I don't blame him.
Yeah, I mean, I got some games on Mac.
Have a great one. Me and Jack will be back tomorrow, Monday, the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We'll see you tonight on the NFL Download. And as always, if your team is in the playoffs, I hope they win.